Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, ranked in the top 2% of over 7 million podcasts on Spotify. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Huang. Today, we're with TVN. TVN, can you give us a brief description of your background?
Tony, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, my name is TVN Reddy. I'm CEO of Aptean. Aptean's solution provider, now AI and software provider for manufacturers and distributors around the globe. Roughly $900 million in revenue with 11,000 customers globally. Yeah, my background, I joined Aptean 13 years ago as the head of engineering, and became CEO of Aptean about 8 years ago. And prior to that, early on, I was started engineering and coding. Beginning of my career, worked at ADP, known for payroll processing, for about 12 years prior to joining Aptean. One thing I would in my career, interesting thing is back, at the .com time, late 90s, I tried to try a startup building websites for car dealers. Now, a lot of the stuff, as I think through it, as I think about the organization and the AI now, I really think back to the days we had to educate car dealers on what a website meant. I kind of think like now we try to educate a lot of customers about what does AI mean to them. I kind of always think back to the days I tried to do it in mid 90s and with in Ohio.
So everyone in AI right now is selling bigger software is better. You're selling the opposite. So what did you see that made you bet against the entire industry?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I always think back to what was the business and enterprises like pre-software era, right? During the software era, we actually created a lot of software, and we trained users on how to use the software. And especially in enterprise software, we created all these, I call it three-letter acronyms: ERP, SCM, WMS, TMS, and keep going on. And we trained our users and buyers on what this means, because we couldn't do all of it, right? No software vendor could do all of it, at least not all of it well. But as we can come back to how we just really focus on what a company, a manufacturer, a distributor, or any of our customers do, it's about doing their job, their works faster, quicker, and with a higher quality of making decisions. They shouldn't be spending more time in systems. They should be spending more time in doing what drives their business, right? If they're a sales rep, they should sell, right? If they're a service rep, they should service. If they're a production manager, they should be on the production doing the work they should do. They should be able to do what they do in systems. My view of it is less than 50%, maybe even 80% less time than what they do today. So we're really focusing on how can we minimize the time they spend in the system so that we can give the time back to them to do what drives their business. And obviously companies can figure out what they do with the freed up time, and building we call it workspaces where the human in the loop, employees can use that on top of the agent. So those are self-learning. So the same product could be working differently for you or me based on the context and the data, based on how you use the data versus I use the product. And that's kind of where we're focusing on. So really the significant reduction in time spent in non-core activities. And then second part of that is they do that work where they naturally do the work. Thinking back 40 years ago, pre-software, what did they do? How did they enter a sales order, right? So they should be able to enter a sales order on the move, the way they naturally do it, versus today we taught them how to do it.
Now, every board meeting has an AI strategy slide, which I thought was kind of interesting. What separates the companies doing real work from the ones just running theater right now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, right? Everybody is doing some sort of experiment. I talk to some of our customers or even peer companies. There's a lot of experimentation going on, right? A lot of experimentation going on, and then they don't know how to measure success. And it's easy to get answers from a chatbot, right? You always will get something back. but is it useful and how does it flow to a company's bottom line or enable the growth? So the very few companies are in that, right, in the trajectory yet. I mean, we made some great strides internally, and then also offering solutions to the customers. And the biggest difference for me is that we need to understand the use cases. Obviously, data quality is important. That's everybody knows that. Don't need to talk about that. But really, like, what are we solving for? What we have seen, Tony, is that people, you go ask somebody and say, hey, I got this great thing called AI. What are your use cases? They give you, right, in the beginning, we saw them giving two kinds of use cases. One is, hey, I can't pull this data from system. Can it get the data for me? Right? It's like a reporting, a different side of reporting. Right? And it's all managers want it, right? Like, I want to know what's happening. But that doesn't reduce any time. Maybe helps you make better decisions a little bit, but not a lot. Or they ask for this use case, they could never solve it. Like something like, if you couldn't solve it for like 20 years, it's probably even with AI, you still need to figure out how to solve it. You got to understand your processes, your data, everything else. So you have two extremes of use cases people chase. But however, there's a whole bunch of use cases in the middle where they can actually get efficiencies very quickly. So what we have taken approach in our business is trying to understand what people do in their work, and then kind of like understanding where the time is spent and where the inefficiencies are without asking them. And then eliminating that frees up capacity, that actually builds the skills and all the infrastructure. That's how we've seen improved efficiencies versus just asking people, what do you want to automate? And then going after those use cases.
So I've seen a lot of like companies layering AI on top of data that they just haven't cleaned in forever. Is basically the quote, do we have an AI initiative? Is that like just code for like we're never gonna fix our data?
No, I mean, garbage in, garbage out, right? We all know that. I mean, it's at the end of the day, AI is, or anything, any intelligence on the data is as good as the data. But there are faster ways to look at the data quality today than before a lot of the times. If you look at today, people build Power BI dashboards and then look at the data to figure out what the data is, where the data inaccuracy is. But we can build AI agents to really run on the data to find patterns, to find inaccurate data, and then you address the data. But now, I mean, right? I mean, the answer maybe have to clean the data. Or ignore the data, or figure out a way to identify the data that's not clean. If you can't fix the data, at least eliminate that from your modeling so that you can actually look at the data and model properly.
For like hallucination, if there's a hallucination in like marketing like material, that's a typo.
Yeah.
If there's like hallucination in like a supply chain, that's a recall. So like, what's the real industry tolerance for AI that's like mostly right?
But it always depends on the use case, right? Like, for example, what's the cost of a false positive or a false negative in that specific workflow? Obviously, you're going to order $1 million of raw materials based on wrong model. Obviously, that's going to cost you a lot. Versus saying, okay, you're just going to assign somebody wrong work for half an hour. That's not a big deal. So I think every process has a different tolerance, right? And then we just need to understand what the tolerance is, and then really figure out like, how much validation you want to do around the AI. Because one of the things like I always remind every day, people say, okay, I'm going to run this AI agent. What if it does wrong? I need 3 people to check it. Like, why don't you ask 3 people what they check? There's a specific pattern. You can build validation agents. You can actually check the data a lot better than a human could, right? Only thing human need to check is the pattern you cannot articulate. If you can articulate a pattern, right, person who actually can do this A, B, and C, we can build a validation agent ecosystem so that it can actually doesn't do it, or at least alert it, right? So there's a whole, we can improve by kind of iterative kind of ecosystem of agents, kind of building and validating. You can improve the quality and accuracy. The second thing is, which is where we come in, is knowing the nuances. Right? When I speak with customers ask me, oh, I can use Claude and I can use this, and I can get what I want. And what do we need to use your AI? I'm like, listen, you get 95%. 95% doesn't differentiate you from your next, right? Your competition or anybody else. It's the 5%. It's a nuance as understanding the deep vertical knowledge of how your industry operates, how your company operates, and also in the data, right? That's what's going to differentiate. That's what's going to drive the outsized efficiencies versus everybody gets the AI and then you save an hour a day, hour a week. So that is, that's how kind of we think about it.
So with like general purpose models being sold as like good enough for almost anything, I guess like how does good enough play in like a an industry that has financial implications where like say like a 2% error rate is like a lawsuit?
I mean, that's going to be like, companies like us have to take responsibility to make sure we're building, right, building logic and ecosystem, right? Whether it be skills that are using models underneath to make sure we can decrease the error rate. We want to get to at least, three sigmas, right? Something like that, right? Like minimum, like a 99 point, like enterprise, especially enterprise business who we serve, they rely on our software or our AI to run their business every single day, and they're not going to validate the data. So it's on us or any other provider to make sure that, right, the error rate said 2% is probably like, it should be like a 0.5%. Right, if it's less than 99.5% accuracy right, it is probably not unusable. Or at least we need to tell them, right? It's like, okay, it's experimental. You could do it in this domain, but something I would say it should be less than 50 bips or 50.5% inaccurate.
So I guess why are some
Mute, Tony.
like chief financial officers still signing checks for like general purpose AI that's measurably worse at their actual jobs?
Yeah. Is the question around using general purpose AI across the
Right, right.
financial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for instance, like a Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like general purpose, and it's really easy to distribute across the entire organization and like flip of a switch, but it kind of doesn't really do a good job most of the time.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's we have some customers, which is we even go to the customers and say, hey, listen, we talk about our solutions or AI, how we can come and help them implement our vertical AI to run their business. They're like, sometimes founders say, oh, I put my P&L into Claude last week, and then I got all of this stuff, and then they don't even understand that. I'm like, it's stuff you're putting into public LLM, somebody else can pull it. Right? Because a lot of people don't even know, right, to turn off the, don't train on my data. So they just log in and start using it. And then, right, they're putting all these recipes and like some of their, right, company specific materials onto the public LLM. So there's obviously, we got to educate people on not doing it. Once we tell the customers that they shouldn't do it, then they get right. They obviously understand it. Second thing is, I think right now, I believe like all of us, a lot of people, in this learning learning, it's like a toy. You get something, you have something you don't have, but is it really useful to run your business? Right? I can do a travel agenda for my next trip. Great, right? That's good. That's looking any general purpose AI, I could do it. I could do a little bit more searching on my content and everything else, but can I truly use that to drive efficiencies in my business? Right? I mean, answer is no, right? We all know the answer. I think but also when we speak with a lot of our customers who are obviously manufacturers and distributors, I spent time last week with a few of our customers in Canada. The founders and CEOs, they're like, we hear about it all the time. Right? Obviously, I want to be in on it, but what does that mean? I think they're still trying to understand the power of it or of AI. That's where we come in, or any other or come in. We need this. I compare this going back to when we help people from going from paper to software. Right? It's not the tool, it's the education. We need to work with these customers to make sure there's one thing is they're using it appropriately to drive their business and getting the most value for it. Being a trusted advisor to be able to help them not just use AI. I mean, using AI could be anywhere, right? Big scale from, right? Just use it for right? Check my meeting schedule versus I run my business with it, right? So we're really kind of helping them adopt it, not just to use it, but helping process reengineering, helping right driving efficiency in every process they do. It's large scale. That's where we're right. The vertical AI providers and the people, especially company like us, we understand their data, their business, their nuances. That's how we're bringing it to them. Yeah, general purpose AI is really not going to do much. I mean,
Just to piggyback on what you said about training the data, I also have been approached by a lot of people asking, how do I turn off the data? So this is like a public service announcement, but if you're not paying for a monthly subscription with that chatbot provider, like ChatGPT, for instance, they will just take whatever you type in there and they'll train your data. Like there's nothing you can there's nothing you can do because you're the product. The moment you start paying for it, like if you start paying like that $20 a month fee, it's still like turned on to train your data. So you have to go into like privacy and then turn off like don't train my data. So that's like I get that a lot. So that's how you do it. You have to at least pay $20 a month in order to be able to get the option to turn off the training data. Uh, public service announcement, write it down. Go change up your settings because I've seen a lot of people just throw like healthcare information into ChatGPT, like the free version, because like they just want to know like what does my like bill say, or like what does it mean, and they not realizing all that PHI, all that PII is like it's gonna be trained later on, just because they don't understand like you have to pay for it in order to turn it off. You have anything to add to that? Because it's
well,
kind of
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, no, it's absolutely. I'm glad you said it, right? The second thing is, even you pay $20, don't you think about like a small company of 50 employees? Everybody's buying their own, like buying their $20 subscription. And then we need to educate everybody, right? Because things all of a sudden went from this rigid, tight IT security to everybody has this, like open LLM, ChatGPT, and the people start throwing everything in there. Oh, it's easy to do my Excel analysis. I'll just put Excel here and ask it to do questions, right? But they're not turning off training. Like we see very few people actually understand you cannot do that. So it's going to be, and over time, I mean, people will learn. But thing is, right. Obviously, we encourage all our customers to actually use AI through us, which is secure. We lock out the data that nobody can see it. Even right, they have a personal what's shared within the company, so that we can actually make sure right secure use of AI versus just opening it up for everybody.
Yeah, piggybacking onto that, I mean, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, Samsung employees like leaked out trade secrets onto ChatGPT because they didn't like turn that off. And
Yeah.
it's already too late once you like throw your data into it. I mean, it's like in the next version update, it's gonna have all that data in there. So you gotta be careful, people. Um, so right now, the conventional wisdom is that bigger language models win. There is an opposite thesis where smaller, deeper, embedded small language models in industry data are is the way to go. So, like in your opinion, like what's like the right path?
I think I over long term, I think everything's going to become vertical. It has to, right? We saw these cycles in the past, right? Everything starts this, and eventually, if you want to really get to that 99.9% value, it has to become more and more vertical. Otherwise, you only get the 90% of the value. That's bound to happen. But how that happens, who provides that, right? Do we have like a bigger right providers go vertical and then starting to provide it, like, or are different companies build SLMs, right? And that's yet to be seen because obviously, right, like how they go deeper into each vertical is to be seen. The way we're approaching it, short term and long term would be, we have to have LLMs or harness on our data. We have to be able to kind of like make sure we're training on our data. So we're trying different things to build our vertical models, whether it be taking the existing LLMs and then harnessing in our data and then keeping it secure, right, in our way, or looking at different paths. But it's bound to happen. Otherwise, the other option is companies what are we doing? We're building agents. on top of the LLM. Using LLMs, agents is nothing but like a static code and path, right, on top of the LLM. So you're really building a bunch of code on top of the using LLMs. That at some point that's not scalable. How many agents, right, the world can build, and then everybody has agents. So eventually we need the vertical LLMs or SLMs, whatever we call them, to understand the nuances so they can be self-learning on the data and context versus building skills or right on top of the generic LLMs.
Right now, I'm seeing like virtually every ERP vendor has like a bolt-on AI feature. So like, what's the difference between like a feature like that and like an actual AI native product? Like in terms of like how like like a C level person would feel actually using it.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, everybody has agents. Who doesn't, right? Every software company has an agent. So we think of like, I think of it in the three different steps. One is a product plus AI. There'll be a feature or agents, part of it, right? That comes with every product will have agents, just part of this. Second thing we'll look at is it's not a product, it's a corporate, like our customers' entire data, all their key processes. How can we do real-time data aggregation and then run AI on top of it? That AI is obviously agents we build, or we can build for their custom processes. We call it AI as a service today, and then we have a massive interest. We have thousands of customers we're talking right now in terms of helping them with building some custom processes, like, so that they can actually, 24/7 answer questions, take orders, right, and reduce, a lot of the manual work down. And then, so we can do that on a company or a product level, or we actually want to do it. Our goal is to do it at a corporate level, aggregate all the data, right, and then run it. That's so much more exponentially more useful than a small agent on one single product domain. And the third one we're actually going to launch later this month is we call it Aptean Ascent. It's basically AI services for continuous enterprise transformation. We speak with a lot of prospecting customers, especially our customers, manufacturer distributors. Right? Our goal is to really help them improve their profit margins and help them scale without adding more costs. More importantly, every company has, as you all know, like a lot of key employees, right? They're like, it's not the employee population, like a few key employees are inhibitors to growth. And then how do we help them, right, remove the bottlenecks for growth so they can actually grow faster and we can enable to that. So that is kind of like, we call that Aptean Ascent, which is, we are working with a few of strategic customers this month, and it will be more and more, where we help them with the entire AI end-to-end on top of the software. They could be using our software or some other software, really doesn't matter. I mean, it depends on how deeply we can integrate with it. For agents to pull the data and act on the data, aggregate data, help them with the decision speed, decision intelligence, and predictability and supply chain, right, raw material, supply chain forecasting, like really going through every single process they have and driving the efficiencies and speed to decision. So those are kind of like how we're approaching it. Because my view is that, agents on top of the product is good, but that's just the starting point.
What I've seen is that a lot of companies are like buying tools and then they're calling them like teammates, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So if like an AI agent, if they're now like teammates, right? Like
Yeah.
who gets fired when like the teammate screws up and hallucinates? Is it like the employee? Is it the vendor? Is it the exec who hired the teammate? Like, what's your take on that?
That's a pretty, right, it's a hard question. So we're also in our business, we're launching, we call it digital workers, digital teammates, right? And then they're assigned to a person, they're working on behalf of a person, right? Some are automation, right? So yeah, I mean, the goal is whoever they're assigned to, they need to watch them, right? It's going to be two people responding. One is the people design those skills and making sure those skills actually do the right thing. Right. And then second thing is, our approach is that we in our App Central ecosystem, we call it agents underneath they're running. And then we have what we call workspaces, because basically these are the human in the loop. So agents will do what they do and then expose everything in the workspace for a CFO or a CEO to be able to see it. right? And then they can actually say, I want to review every single thing agent does. I want to click, right? Or they can say, okay, I'm comfortable with it, let it write. And then I just want to see after it's sent. So we kind of like the autonomous actions, right? And the tolerance for autonomous actions, obviously work on the domain and the person's comfort and enough testing. So to me, right, it should be the person who owns it, who has to watch and feel comfortable with it. And it's also company, right? Depends on the use case as well, right? Which use case are super complex. Let's say, do you want agents to go pull somebody's merit increase letter and send it? But what if it sends the wrong person, right? So right? And now what kind of validation we have it?
We got one last question. So, in my opinion, I think that companies that are going to win this, like just win the game, are going to be the ones aren't going to be the ones with like the biggest, hottest models. I think they're going to be the ones with like the cleanest data or like the best workflow or like perhaps like the best distribution. In your opinion, like who do you like? What type of characteristic do you think like a winning company is going to have?
But it's really, to me, the winning company needs to have courage, right? They need to have courage to transform their business to lean into it. Right? Obviously, data cleanliness is a part of it, but it's the process reengineering. A lot of the times I call about, it's like, how to rethink about your organizational structure, right? How do you leverage AI to rethink everything you do, right? What's your current bottleneck, right? With AI, the bottlenecks will shift. Understanding the new constraints, right? Really, it's really, every time that we have this big technology comes, what it does is it actually resolves some of the constraints we have today and creates new constraints. Right. So really understanding, right, their business and then using data, using AI to reimagine how it's going to work in future and starting to be, and also most importantly, being very entrepreneurial, being agile. This thing no one knows, right? How fast it's going to move. It could be faster than we think or slower than we think, and what shape it's going to be 2 years from now, right? There's so many different scenarios where it's going to be 2 years from now. So being companies that, right, create an entrepreneurial agile culture to adapt fast and then stay on top of it, I think, Tony, are going to be the winners. So it's adaptability trumps everything else.
Well, thanks for being on the show, TVN. Learned so much about this, and to the viewers listening at home, stay curious.